They called him a slave. Rome called him an enemy. But to tens of thousands, he became something far greater: hope itself. What if I told you that one of the greatest threats Rome ever faced didn't come from mighty kings or foreign empires, but from a single slave? A man who rose from chains to challenge the most powerful republic on earth. His name was Spartacus. And his rebellion would terrify Rome, shake its foundations, and nearly bring the mighty empire to its knees. They say empires fear the enemy within more than the armies beyond their borders. And in 73 BC, Rome discovered just how true that was. Spartacus was not born into chains. He was a Thracian from the rugged, mountainous lands of the Balkans, where independence was life itself. Thracians were fierce warriors, used to hardship, proud and untamed. Spartacus grew up in that world, strong, battle-hardened, unwilling to bend. But Rome's reach was long. As the Republic expanded, it swallowed Thracian tribes in endless wars. Spartacus was captured, shackled, and dragged across hundreds of miles to Italy. For Rome, he was just another prisoner of war. For Spartacus, it was the beginning of a nightmare. He was sold into the brutal life of a gladiator in Capua, a city famous for its massive training school. Life inside those stone walls was a daily rehearsal for death. Gladiators trained until their bodies broke, forced to perfect the art of killing not for survival, but for spectacle. The Romans loved to watch blood spill. Imagine the scene: a courtyard filled with men wielding wooden swords, each swing cracking like thunder against shields. Trainers with whips shouted commands, punishing the weak. At night, the men slept in cramped cells, iron bars sealing them in. They lived knowing each sunrise might be their last. Some fought to prolong their lives, others prayed for death to free them from misery. But Spartacus was different. He endured the lash. He studied every move, every tactic. He watched how men fought and died. He refused to let Rome break him. Among the gladiators, he became respected, not because he was the strongest, though he was, but because he was calm, calculating, and always thinking beyond survival. And slowly, whispers began to spread. What if they didn't wait to die? What if they fought not each other, but Rome itself? In the summer of 73 BC, the whispers turned into action. About 70 gladiators plotted their escape. They had no weapons, no allies, nothing but desperation and courage. Armed at first with kitchen knives and spits from the cooking fires, they struck. Chaos erupted as they overwhelmed their guards, stormed the armory, and seized real weapons. The impossible had happened. They were free. Led by Spartacus, they fled to the wild slopes of Mount Vesuvius. From there, they prepared for the inevitable Roman response. To the Senate, this was nothing more than a nuisance, an embarrassment to be crushed quickly. They sent soldiers to trap the fugitives, but Spartacus had no intention of waiting to be slaughtered. In a move that stunned his enemies, Spartacus and his men crafted ropes from vines, lowered themselves down the cliffs at night, and struck from behind. The Roman camp was overrun. The soldiers were slaughtered. And for the first time, slaves had humiliated Rome's legions. News spread like wildfire. Across Italy, slaves abandoned their masters. They poured into Spartacus' camp, shepherds, farmhands, deserters, men and women alike. Within weeks, his band of 70 grew into thousands. And within months, it became an army. The Senate began to panic. Slave revolts had happened before, but none had grown this fast, this organized. Spartacus wasn't a bandit. He wasn't a madman. He was a leader, and worse, he was a symbol. Unlike many rebels, Spartacus enforced discipline. He forbade pointless cruelty. Loot was shared fairly. He trained his men to fight like soldiers, not mobs. He even organized supply chains, turning raided farms into sources of food and weapons. His vision was simple: freedom. He wanted to lead his people north, across the Alps, and back to their homelands. But freedom would not come so easily. Rome threw army after army at Spartacus, and every time, he crushed them. Roman commanders, consuls, even seasoned generals were defeated, their reputation shattered. Entire legions fled in panic before the fury of slaves turned warriors. Rome's pride was wounded, the Senate trembled. What if Spartacus marched on the city itself? Inside Rome, fear was everywhere. Senators debated whether the Republic could survive this humiliation. Wealthy landowners armed their slaves, terrified of rebellion spreading to their estates. Merchants fled the countryside. The greatest empire the world had known was being shaken, not by kings or armies, but by the very people it enslaved. And Spartacus had his chance. His army marched north, crushing all resistance. The Alps lay ahead, beyond them, freedom. For a moment, it seemed the dream was real, but then, something changed. Some say his men refused to leave Italy, seduced by plunder and revenge. Others claim Spartacus believed he could do more than escape, that he could carve out a new life for his people in Italy itself. Whatever the reason, they turned back. The chance to escape was lost. The Senate, desperate and humiliated, turned to Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome. Crassus wasn't a brilliant general, but he was ruthless, and he had resources beyond measure. He rebuilt Rome's armies with discipline so brutal it bordered on madness. When his soldiers faltered, he revived the ancient punishment of decimation, executing every 10th man to terrify the rest into obedience. Now, the war turned bloodier. Spartacus' rebels still won victories, but Rome's grip was tightening. Crassus built walls and trenches to trap Spartacus in the southern tip of Italy. Yet Spartacus broke through, refusing to die quietly. His men fought with desperation, with rage, with the unbreakable hunger for freedom. At one point, Spartacus even tried to arrange passage across the sea with pirates, hoping to escape to Sicily. But betrayal cost him dearly. The ships never came. His army was stranded. Rome pressed harder. And as the rebels weakened, another danger appeared. Pompey, Rome's rising star, was returning from victories in Spain with a fresh army. Crassus knew that if he didn't end the war soon, Pompey would claim the glory. The final battle came in 71 BC. Spartacus gathered his remaining forces. Outnumbered, exhausted, but unbroken, they faced Rome one last time. Ancient writers describe Spartacus cutting his way through ranks of soldiers, desperately trying to reach Crassus himself. He fought like a man possessed, his sword striking with the fury of a lifetime of chains. Surrounded, wounded, he fell. His body was never found. The rebellion was crushed. 6,000 survivors were captured and crucified along the Appian Way, their broken bodies lining the road from Capua to Rome. For miles, travelers walked past the grim forest of crosses. It was Rome's message to the world, never again. But Rome could not erase Spartacus. For the Senate, he was a dangerous criminal. For the people, he was a terrifying reminder of how fragile the Republic truly was. But for centuries after, his name lived on as a symbol of defiance, of the unbreakable human spirit. What made Spartacus so dangerous wasn't just his army, it was the idea he carried, that the lowliest, the forgotten, the enslaved could rise and shake the foundations of power. Rome won the war, but it never forgot the fear Spartacus inspired, and history never forgot him either. From ancient accounts to modern revolutions, Spartacus became a symbol of freedom. His story inspired painters, poets, and even political movements centuries later. To some, he was the first true champion of the oppressed. To others, a cautionary tale of rebellion gone too far. But in either case, his name burned across time. Think about it, a man torn from his homeland, chained as a slave, forced to fight for amusement. Nearly brought the world's greatest republic to collapse. He didn't wear a crown, he didn't command legions at first. He had nothing but his will, and with it, he scarred Rome forever. Spartacus didn't destroy Rome, But he showed Rome its greatest weakness, the millions it held in bondage. And that lesson haunted the Republic long after his death. So what do you think? Was Spartacus reckless, dooming thousands to slaughter? Or was he the closest thing the ancient world had to a freedom fighter, a man who dared to challenge the impossible? One thing is certain, his story proves that sometimes history isn't changed by emperors or kings, but by a man who refuses to kneel. If you found this story gripping, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more epic journeys into the rise and fall of empires. And remember, even the mightiest empire can tremble before the cry of freedom.